My son-in-law gave me an unbelievable condition in exchange for something that wasn't even supposed to be a request. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said something I never thought I'd hear. If you want to see your grandchildren, it'll cost you $200 per visit. I didn't argue, didn't beg. I just placed the envelope on his desk and walked out. What he found inside changed everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments section where you're watching from, so I'll know how far my story has gone. I never thought I'd stand in a room like this. Polished mahogany, leather chairs that cost more than my monthly pension, motivational quotes framed on the walls like trophies. Derek's home office in his sprawling house just outside Charlotte smelled like expensive cologne and cold ambition. And there I was, holding an envelope that shook in my hands like a leaf in winter. I thought about Ella, 7 years old with wild curls and a gap-toothed smile that used to light up my Sundays. I thought about Noah, barely 3, who called me Pop Pop and clung to my leg every time I knelt down to hug him. I thought about how it had been 4 months since I'd seen them. 4 months since Vanessa stopped answering my calls. 4 months since Derek started running interference, always with an excuse, always with a reason why now wasn't a good time. And now this. Pay him to see my own grandchildren? I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just stood there, gripping that envelope, feeling the weight of every missed birthday, every unanswered voicemail, every Sunday I spent alone in my too quiet house. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Our house used to be full of noise. Claire's laugh, God, I missed that sound. It was loud and unfiltered, the kind that made strangers smile in grocery stores. She'd stand at the stove every Sunday morning, flipping pancakes, while Vanessa sat at the kitchen table, swinging her legs, telling us about everything and nothing all at once. That house on Elm Street wasn't fancy. The floors creaked, the wallpaper was outdated, but it was ours, and it was full. When Claire got sick, the silence crept in slowly. First it was just the coughing, then the hospital visits, then the day she couldn't get out of bed. Vanessa had been 24 then. She'd come home every weekend, sitting by her mother's bedside, reading aloud from romance novels Claire pretended to hate but secretly loved. The day we lost her, Vanessa held my hand at the funeral and whispered, "We still have each other, Dad." I believed her. A year later, she brought Derek home. It was a Saturday afternoon in late June. I'd fired up the grill on the back patio, set out lemonade, tried to make the house feel welcoming again. Vanessa had been glowing, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, in a way I hadn't seen since before Claire got sick. Derek stepped out of his Lexus in pressed khakis and a polo shirt, handshake firm, smile wide. "Mr. Turner, it's an honor to finally meet you," he'd said. "Vanessa talks about you constantly." I'd wanted to believe him, wanted to see what she saw. He'd complimented the yard, asked about my work at the electric company, 32 years before retirement, laughed at my jokes, helped clean up after dinner without being asked. But there was something in the way he looked at our house. A flicker. Quick. Almost invisible. Like he was measuring it. Judging it. Filing it away. And when Vanessa went inside to grab dessert, he'd leaned back in his chair, looked around the modest backyard and said, "You done well for yourself, Liam. Simple life. I respect that." Simple. The word had stuck with me, sharp as a splinter. That night, after they'd left, I'd found one of Claire's old letters tucked in a drawer. She used to leave me notes, little reminders, encouragements, love letters folded into squares. This one was from years ago, written during a rough patch at work when my supervisor had tried to undermine me. Her handwriting was messy, hurried, but the words were clear. "Don't let anyone make you small, Liam. You're worth more than their opinions. Don't you forget that." I'd smiled then, folded it back up, and put it in my wallet. I carried it everywhere after she died. Now, pulling into my driveway, the house dark and empty, I reached into my wallet and unfolded that letter again. Her words scared back at me. "Don't let anyone make you small." I sat there in the car, engine ticking as it cooled, and realized something. I'd forgotten. There was a time when Sundays were sacred. Every week, like clockwork, Vanessa would pull up to my house around 10 in the morning, and Ella and Noah would burst out of the car like fireworks. Ella always got to the door first, pounding on it with her little fists, yelling, "Pop, pop, 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 we're here!" I'd open that door, and Noah would already be reaching up, arms stretched wide, that gap-toothed grin splitting his face. "Pop, pop!" he'd squeal, and I'd scoop him up, feeling his tiny hands grab my collar. Those mornings smelled like promise. We had our routine. First stop, Freedom Park, just 15 minutes down the road. Ella loved the swings. She'd pump her legs as hard as she could, head thrown back, hair flying wild, shouting, "Higher, Pop Pop! Push me higher!" And I would, every time. Noah was braver on the slides than I expected for a 2-year-old. He'd climb up those metal steps, wobbling a little, then look back at me for reassurance. I'd nod, give him a thumbs up, and down he'd go, giggling the whole way. After the park, we'd walk to the little ice cream shop on Pecan Avenue. Ella always ordered mint chocolate chip. Noah got vanilla in a cup because cones were too messy, according to Vanessa. But I'd always let him have a cone anyway. He'd get it all over his face, sticky hands, pure joy. And I'd wipe him clean with napkins, laughing as he protested. "Pop, Pop, I wasn't done yet." "You've got more on your face than in your belly, buddy." Ella would roll her eyes like she was so much older, so much wiser. "Noah's a mess, Pop Pop." "Yeah, well, you were too at his age." She'd gasp, genuinely offended. "No, I wasn't." I'd just smile, let her believe it. One Sunday in early spring, I taught Ella how to ride her bike without training wheels. She'd been begging for weeks. Vanessa said she wasn't ready, but Ella looked at me with those big brown eyes, Claire's eyes, and said, "Pop Pop believes in me, right, Pop Pop?" How could I say no? We went to the empty parking lot behind the old library. I held the back of her seat, jogging alongside her as she pedaled, wobbling a little, gripping the handlebars like her life depended on it. "Don't let go," she yelled. "I won't," I promised. But eventually, I did. And she kept going. 10 feet, 20, 30. When she finally looked back and realized I wasn't holding on anymore, her face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. "Pop, Pop, I'm doing it! I'm doing it!" I stood there in that empty parking lot, hands on my knees, out of breath, prouder than I'd ever been. That's my girl. Then, one Sunday, my phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Hey, Dad. Can't make it today. Derek's family's visiting from Raleigh. Maybe next week." I stared at the message. It was fine. Families got busy. I understood. I texted back, "No problem. Tell the kids Pop loves them." She never responded. Next week came. Another text. "So sorry, Dad. Derek booked us a weekend at the resort in Asheville. Kids are so excited. We'll reschedule soon." Soon. The Sundays started slipping away after that. One missed visit became two became a month. And when I finally did see them again, Derek was always there, hovering, watching, checking his phone. And something had changed in the way Ella looked at me, like a stranger she used to know. The calls stopped being answered first. I'd dial Vanessa's number on Tuesday evenings, the way I always did. It used to be our check-in time, just 10, 15 minutes to catch up, hear about the kids' week, tell her about mine. But the rings grew longer. The voicemails piled up. "Hey, sweetie, just calling to say hi. Love you. Call me back when you can." She never did. When she finally texted back, always texted, never called, it was brief, distant. "Sorry, Dad. Crazy busy. Talk soon." Soon became weeks. Weeks became months. Ella's 8th birthday was in October. I'd marked it on my calendar in red ink, the way Claire used to do for every family milestone. I'd bought Ella a new bike helmet, purple with silver stars, her favorite, and wrapped it carefully, signed the card with a joke I knew would make her laugh. I called Vanessa a week before. I'd love to take Ella out for her birthday. Maybe just lunch, just the two of us, her choice of restaurant. There was a pause. "Oh, Dad, Derek actually already planned a big party. It's going to be at this venue in South Park. Bounce houses, catering, the whole thing." "That sounds wonderful," I said, swallowing the tightness in my throat. "What time should I be there?" Another pause. Longer this time. It's kind of a kids and parents thing. You know how those parties get. Chaotic. But I'll make sure Ella calls you that night, okay?" She never did. I sat alone in my living room that evening, staring at the wrapped present on the coffee table, the card still sealed. The next week, I drove it over to their house and left it on the porch. Vanessa texted me later. "Got the gift. Ella loves it. Thanks, Dad." No photo. No phone call from Ella. No thank you in her own words. Just a text. I started noticing other things. When I did manage to see the kids, brief, awkward visits that felt more like supervised appointments than family time, Derek was always there. Always. He'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed, checking his Rolex, interjecting into conversations like a referee. "Liam, we've got to wrap this up soon. Kids have tutoring." "Liam, don't let Noah have too much sugar. We're managing his diet." "Liam, Ella's got homework. Maybe keep it short today." He never called me Dad, never even called me by a nickname. Just Liam. Cold. Transactional. And the kids started changing too. Ella stopped running to hug me. She'd glance at Derek first, like she was checking for permission. Noah didn't call me Pop as much anymore. Just Grandpa. Formal. Distant. One afternoon, I took them to get ice cream. Derek had allowed it, 15-minute maximum. And while I was paying inside, I heard Ella talking to Noah outside on the bench. "Pop's nice," Noah said, licking his vanilla cone. Ella shrugged, swinging her legs, mimicking an expression I'd seen Derek make 100 times. "I guess,
But Daddy says he's old and boring. He said Pop doesn't really do anything fun anymore. I stood frozen behind the glass door, receipt in hand. Old and boring? Noah looked confused. But Pop's fun. He pushes us on the swings. Ella rolled her eyes, mimicking an expression I'd seen Derek make 100 times. That's baby stuff, Noah. I stepped outside, forcing a smile, my chest cracking open. Got your cones, kiddos? Ella looked up at me, and for just a second, I saw guilt flicker in her eyes. But she said nothing. That night, I sat in my car outside their gated neighborhood, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the entrance like it was a wall I'd never be allowed to cross again. I thought about Claire, about what she'd say if she saw this, and I realized something. I wasn't losing my grandchildren. They were being taken from me.
I'd been thinking about it for weeks. The Durham Museum of Life and Science had a new dinosaur exhibit, interactive, educational, the kind of thing Ella and Noah would have loved. I'd seen the flyers at the grocery store. Imagine their faces lighting up at the life-size T-Rex, Noah tugging my hand, Ella rattling off facts she'd learned from her science books. It felt like a lifeline. One more chance to be Pop again. So I called. It was a Thursday evening, just after 6. I figured Vanessa would be home from work, maybe cooking dinner, and I could ask her directly. But Derek answered. Liam. His voice was flat, distracted. I could hear him typing in the background. Hey, Derek, is Vanessa around? She's putting Noah to bed. What do you need? I hesitated. Something about his tone made me feel like I was interrupting something important. I wanted to ask about taking Ella and Noah to the Science Museum this Saturday, just for the afternoon. There's a dinosaur exhibit they'd really... This Saturday? He cut me off. We've got plans. Oh. My chest sank. What about next Saturday? The typing stopped. There was a pause, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Liam, let me be straight with you, Derek said, finally, his voice shifting into something sharper, colder. My schedule is tight. Between work, the kids' activities, and family commitments, coordinating these visits takes real effort on my end. I frowned. I understand. I'm not asking for anything complicated. I just want a few hours with them. Right, and that's the thing. He sighed, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. A few hours means I have to drive them to Matthew's, wait around or come back to pick them up, supervise the whole situation. That's time I'm losing. Time I could be spending on other things. Supervise? Derek, I've been watching those kids since they were born. I'm not questioning your ability, Liam. I'm talking about logistics. And frankly, he paused, and I could almost see him leaning back in that leather chair of his. My time isn't free. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't understand at first. What does that mean? It means if you want quality time with Ella and Noah, I'd need compensation. $200 per visit. That covers my time, transportation, coordination, everything. My hand tightened around the phone. You're serious? Completely. I felt my breath catch. My pulse pounded in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a joke. He wanted me to pay him to see my grandchildren? Derek, they're my. I know who they are, Liam, but they're my kids, and I'm the one managing access. So if you want to make this work, that's the terms. I sat there speechless, staring at the museum flyer still taped to my fridge. Then I hung up. No goodbye, no argument, just silence. And in that silence, something inside me shifted. After I hung up, I just sat there. The house was too quiet. It had been too quiet for years, but that night, the silence felt like it had weight, like it was pressing down on my chest, suffocating me. I looked around the living room. Same couch Claire and I had picked out 20 years ago, same coffee table with the scratches from when Vanessa was little and dragged her toy trucks across it, same framed photos lining the mantel. Claire smiling in her yellow sundress at the beach, Vanessa in her high school graduation cap, Ella and Noah, 2 Christmases ago, covered in wrapping paper and laughter. Ghosts. All of them. I'd already lost Claire. Watched her slip away, breath by breath, until one morning she just didn't wake up. I thought I knew what loss felt like, but this was losing her all over again, because Vanessa had been the last piece of Claire I had left. Her smile, her stubbornness, her big heart that always tried to see the good in people. And now, Vanessa was gone too. Not dead, but absent, pulled away by a man who saw me as inconvenient, as a transaction. The grandchildren, Ella and Noah, they were supposed to be our legacy, the continuation of everything Claire and I had built. And now, I had to pay to see them. I couldn't sleep that night. At 2 a.m, I got in my truck and drove. I didn't plan it, my hands just knew where to go. 20 minutes later, I was standing at Evergreen Memorial Cemetery, flashlight in hand, walking the familiar path to Claire's grave. The headstone was simple, clean, just her name, her dates, and the line I'd chosen, "Beloved wife and mother, you made us better." I knelt down in the damp grass, setting the flashlight beside me so it cast long shadows across the stone. "Hey, baby. I know it's late." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. I traced her name with my finger, the engraved letters cold and smooth. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm losing them, Claire. Vanessa, the kids, they're slipping away, and I don't know how to stop it. I told her everything. About Derek's demand, about the missed Sundays, about Ella saying I was old and boring, about Noah forgetting to call me Pop-Pop, about how small I'd started to feel. You always told me not to let people make me small. You wrote it in that letter, remember? After that thing with my supervisor? You said I was worth more than their opinions. I pulled the letter from my wallet, folded, worn, the ink fading in places, and held it up like she could see it. I forgot, Claire. I let him make me small. I let him take them from me, and I stood there and let it happen. The tears came then, hot and bitter. I cried for Claire, for Vanessa, for the grandchildren I was losing, and for the man that I'd become. Silent, defeated, erased. But as I knelt there, something shifted. A memory surfaced, Claire's voice, clear as day, from years ago. "Liam Turner, you're the kindest man I know, but don't mistake kindness for weakness. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand up and say enough." I wiped my eyes, folded the letter, put it back in my wallet. "I think I finally understand what you meant about not letting them make me small." I stood, brushing the grass from my knees. "I'm not small, Claire, and I'm done acting like I am." I got home from the cemetery just before dawn. The sky was that soft, bruised purple that comes right before sunrise. The neighborhood was still asleep, porch lights glowing, driveways empty, the world holding its breath. Inside, I made coffee, Strong and black, the way Claire used to tease me about. One day that's going to eat a hole through your stomach, Liam. I smiled at the memory. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a plain white envelope from the drawer. For a long time, I just stared at it. My hands were steadier than they'd been in months. I picked up a pen, one of the good ones, the kind Claire had bought me years ago for signing important documents, and carefully wrote across the front, Derek. Not Derek Hammond, not Mr. Hammond. Just Derek. Simple. Direct. I set the pen down and looked at the envelope, my handwriting clean and deliberate. Then I turned my head and looked at the photo on the fridge. It was from 2 summers ago. Ella and Noah at Freedom Park, both of them mid-laugh, ice cream smeared on Noah's cheeks, Ella's hair a wild halo of curls in the sunlight. I'd taken the picture with my old phone. Nothing fancy, just a moment I wanted to remember. They looked so happy, so mine. I reached out and touched the corner of the photo, my thumb brushing over Ella's smile. I'm doing this for you two, I whispered. I hope someday you'll understand. I stood, walked to my desk in the corner of the living room, and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a folder. Documents. Records. Things I had been keeping for years, just in case. Things I never thought I'd need. I pulled out what I was looking for, slid it carefully into the envelope, and sealed it. No hesitation, no second guessing. I held the envelope up to the light as if I could see through it, as if the weight of what was inside could be measured by something other than consequence. Then I set it on the table and sat back in my chair. The coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I felt calm. Not angry, not sad, just clear. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting to Derek. I wasn't begging. I wasn't shrinking. I was acting. And that made all the difference. I picked up my phone and sent a single text to Derek. I'd like to stop by tomorrow evening. Need to give you something. 6 p.m. work? The reply came within minutes. Fine. Make it quick. I smiled, set the phone down, and stared at the envelope one last time. Tomorrow, Derek would open it, and everything would change. I arrived at Derek's house at exactly 6 o'clock. The driveway was pristine, freshly sealed blacktop, luxury cars gleaming under the motion sensor lights. The house itself looked like something out of a magazine, all glass and sharp angles, modern and cold. I rang the doorbell, envelope in hand. Derek answered almost immediately, like he'd been watching through the window. He was in business casual, pressed slacks, a button-down with the sleeves rolled up, the uniform of a man who wanted you to know he was important, even at home. Liam. He didn't smile, just stepped aside and gestured toward the hallway. Come in, let's make this quick. I followed him through the marble-floored foyer, past the oversized abstract art, past the floating staircase where I could hear the faint sounds of cartoons playing upstairs. Ella and Noah were home. So close, but I might as well have been 1,000 miles away. Derek led me into his office and shut the door behind us. He moved behind his desk, settling into that leather chair like it was a throne. I stood across from him, the envelope still in my hands. So, Derek said, leaning back and folding his arms, what's this about? I didn't sit, didn't move. I've been thinking about what you said on the phone, I began, my voice steady, about paying you to see Ella and Noah. Derek nodded slowly, like a teacher waiting for a student to finish a weak argument. And? And I wanted to give you my answer. His eyebrow arched. I'm listening. I took a breath. You said your time is valuable, that coordinating visits, driving the kids, supervising, it all costs you something. That's right. You also said if I wanted quality time with my grandchildren, there would be terms, $200 per visit. Derek's expression didn't change. If anything, he looked mildly bored. Correct. I nodded, looked down at the envelope, then back at him. I understand that you see this as a business arrangement, I said quietly, that you view access to Ella and Noah as something transactional, something you control. I'm their father, Liam. I do control it. And frankly, I don't appreciate the implication that I'm doing anything wrong. I'm protecting my family, managing boundaries. That's what good parents do. Boundaries? I repeated. Exactly. I stared at him for a long moment, at his pressed shirt, his expensive watch, his smug, unbothered face. Then I stepped forward and placed the envelope on his desk. It landed with a soft sound, stark white against the dark wood. Derek's eyes flicked to it, then back to me. What's this? My answer, I said simply. He frowned, clearly expecting more explanation. I didn't give him one. I just turned and walked toward the door. Wait, Liam, what is this? Derek's voice carried a note of irritation now, confusion. I paused at the doorway, my hand on the handle, but I didn't turn around. Open it, I said. You'll understand. Then I walked out. Down the hallway, past the family photos that didn't include me, out the front door into the cool evening air. Behind me, I heard the faint rustle of paper, the tear of the envelope being opened, then silence. I climbed into my truck, hands still steady, heart pounding but calm. I didn't look back at the house, didn't need to. I started the engine and drove away, the weight of months, years, finally lifting from my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I'd said enough.
I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to the overlook off Highway 49, the one Claire and I used to visit when we needed to think, when the world felt too heavy and we needed perspective. I parked, rolled down the windows, and let the night air fill the truck. And I imagined Derek opening that envelope. Inside, there was no check, no cash, no payment. Just a letter. Typed. Professional. Clear. At the top, in bold, a record of events for documentation purposes. I'd started writing it the morning after that phone call. Every word carefully chosen, every detail precise. Derek. This letter serves as formal documentation of our conversation on Thursday, October 3rd, at approximately 6:15 p.m., during which you stated the following. My time isn't free. If you want quality time with Ella and Noah, I'd need compensation. $200 per visit. That covers my time, transportation, coordination, everything. You further clarified that this payment was required for me to have access to my grandchildren, and that you, as their father, control that access. I want to be clear. I am not writing this out of anger. I'm writing this because I believe in transparency, and because I believe Vanessa, your wife, my daughter, deserves to know what terms you've set for her own father to see his grandchildren. I have loved Ella and Noah since the moment they were born. I have never missed a birthday by choice, never canceled a visit without reason, and never asked for anything except the chance to be their grandfather. You have turned that relationship into a transaction. You have commodified love. I'm not interested in negotiating with you, Derek. I'm not interested in paying you. What I am interested in is making sure the people who care about integrity, Vanessa, your colleagues, your community, understand exactly who you are. Enclosed with this letter, you'll find copies being sent to two parties. 1. Vanessa, because she deserves to know what you said in your own words. 2. Human Resources at Grayson Financial Group, because I believe a company that prides itself on ethics and family values, as stated on their website, should be aware when one of their senior consultants is charging family members for access to children. I don't know what will come of this. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But I do know this. I will not let you make me small. I will not disappear quietly. And I will not pay you a single cent to love my grandchildren. Respectfully, Liam Turner. I'd printed 3 copies. One for Derek. One I'd mailed to Vanessa's personal email, the one she'd had since college, the one Derek didn't monitor. And one I'd sent with a formal cover letter to the HR department at Grayson Financial Group, where Derek worked as a senior consultant. I'd done my research, found their code of conduct online, read their mission statement about integrity, family values, and ethical leadership. I didn't know if they'd care, but I knew Derek would, because men like Derek care about one thing above all else: their image. I imagined him reading it twice, 3 times, his face going pale, his hands shaking as he grabbed his phone and dialed Vanessa. I imagined her confusion, then her shock. I imagined her asking, "Derek, did you really say that? Did you really ask my father to pay you?" And I imagined him scrambling for an explanation, an excuse, a way to spin it. But there was no spin for this. Not anymore. I sat in that truck for another 20 minutes, watching the lights of Charlotte flicker in the distance. Then I drove home, and for the first time in months, I slept soundly. Because I'd done the one thing I should have done from the beginning. I'd stopped being silent. I didn't hear from Vanessa that night, or the next morning. I'd expected silence, maybe for days, maybe forever. Part of me had made peace with that. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was what was happening inside that house. Vanessa had been upstairs reading to Noah when her phone buzzed. An email from an address she hadn't used in years. Her old college account. The subject line, "From Dad. Please read." She frowned, glanced at Noah dozing off beside her, and opened it. And there it was. My letter. Every word. She read it once. Then again. Her hands started shaking halfway through the second read. Quote, $200 per visit. Unquote. My time isn't free. Unquote. You control that access. Unquote. She sat frozen on the edge of Noah's bed, her son's soft breathing the only sound in the room. This couldn't be real. Derek wouldn't. But even as she tried to deny it, pieces started clicking into place. The canceled Sundays, always Derek's idea. Your dad's getting older, Vanessa. Maybe it's too much for him. The missed phone calls. He called again. Honey, you've got enough on your plate. I'll handle it. The birthday party her father wasn't invited to. It's just easier this way, babe. Less complicated. And that comment from last month, the one that had felt off, but she'd brushed aside. Your dad's a sweet guy, but he doesn't really add much value to the kids' lives anymore, does he? Value. She'd let that word slide. She'd let so many words slide. Vanessa walked downstairs, her heart pounding, the phone clutched in her hand. Derek was in the living room, pacing, his own phone pressed to his ear. He looked rattled, pale, tense, his voice low and urgent. I don't care what it says. This is a family matter. It's being blown out of proportion. He stopped when she saw her. I'll call you back, he muttered, hanging up quickly. Who was that? Vanessa asked, her voice tight. Work. Nothing important. He tried to smile. Failed. She held up her phone. Did you tell my father he had to pay you to see Ella and Noah? Derek's jaw tensed. Vanessa, did you? Silence. Then, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Derek? Because according to this email, according to my father, you told him his time with his grandchildren came with a price tag. I was trying to set boundaries. Derek's voice rose, defensive now. Your dad was overstepping. He was calling constantly, making demands. Demands? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. He asked to take them to a museum, Derek. Once. And you charged him for it? I didn't charge him. I suggested a structure that respected everyone's time. Stop. Her voice went cold. Stop spinning this. Derek stared at her, his mouth opening and closing, searching for the right words. But there were none. Vanessa turned and walked upstairs. She went into Ella's room first. Her daughter was asleep, curls spread across the pillow, clutching a stuffed giraffe her grandfather had given her years ago. She stood there, staring, her heart breaking. Daddy says he's old and boring. Ella had said that months ago. Vanessa had laughed it off. She shouldn't have. Then she went into her bedroom, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, and started packing. Clothes for Ella, clothes for Noah, toothbrushes, their favorite blankets. Derek appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? She didn't look at him. Taking the kids to my dad's. Vanessa, come on, don't overreact. She spun around, eyes blazing. Overreact? You tried to sell my children, Derek. You turned my father, who has done nothing but love this family, into a transaction. That's not... Get out of my way. Her voice was steady, strong. Derek stepped aside, and Vanessa carried that bag downstairs, woke the kids gently, and buckled them into the car. As she backed out of the driveway, she looked at the house, the one she thought was her dream. It felt like a prison now. She turned toward Matthews, toward home. I was sitting in the living room when I heard it. A soft knock, hesitant, almost apologetic. It was nearly 10 o'clock. I'd been staring at an old photo album, pictures of Vanessa as a little girl, Claire holding her on the porch steps, both of them laughing at something I couldn't remember anymore. The knock came again. I stood, my heart suddenly hammering in my chest, and walked to the door. When I opened it, I forgot how to breathe. Vanessa stood there, face pale and streaked with tears, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked younger somehow, smaller, like the girl who used to come home from college and collapse on the couch, overwhelmed by finals and life. Behind her, in the driveway, I could see my old sedan, her car now, The back windows fogged, two small shapes slumped in car seats. Ella. Noah. "Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't say anything. I just opened my arms, and she fell into them, sobbing like she hadn't cried in years. I held her on that porch for a long time. Her shoulders shook, her hands gripped the back of my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "Shh," I whispered, stroking her hair the way I used to when she was little and had nightmares. "It's okay. You're here now." "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what he said to you." "I know, sweetheart. I should have seen it. I should have paid attention. But I wanted to believe everything was fine, that we were fine, that I'd made the right choice." I pulled back, holding her by the shoulders, looking into her red, puffy eyes. "You did nothing wrong, Vanessa. You hear me? You loved your family. You trusted your husband. That's not a mistake. That's who you are." She shook her head, tears still streaming. "But I let him take you away from us. I let him control everything. The visits, the calls, the birthdays." Her voice cracked. "I let him make you small, Dad." I felt my own eyes sting. "You didn't let him do anything," I said gently. "He did it, not you." She wiped her face with the back of her hand, staring at the porch boards. "I think," she paused, swallowing hard, "I think I married someone like Mom's illness." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked up at me, eyes full of something raw and painful. "Something that took everything and gave nothing back. Something I kept hoping would get better if I just tried harder, if I just loved harder." The words hit me like a punch to the chest, because she was right. I didn't say anything. I just pulled her close again, resting my chin on top of her head. "You're not there anymore," I whispered. "You're here, and that's all that matters." We stood like that for a while, the cool night air wrapping around us. Then Vanessa pulled back, wiping her eyes, glancing toward the car. "The kids are asleep. Can we—" "Of course," I was already moving toward the driveway. "Let's get them inside." Together we unbuckled Ella and Noah, carrying their warm, sleeping bodies into the house, into home.
The next few weeks moved like dominoes falling. I didn't push, didn't interfere. I just opened my home and let Vanessa and the kids stay as long as they needed. Ella had her own room again, the one that used to be Vanessa's, still painted the soft lavender Claire had chosen years ago. Noah took the guest room, and I set up his favorite nightlight, the one shaped like a rocket ship. Sundays became ours again. Pancakes, parks, ice cream. No timers, no supervision, no permission needed. Just us. But outside those walls, the fallout was quiet and swift. Vanessa told me bits and pieces when the kids were asleep. Derek had tried calling her dozens of times that first night. She'd blocked his number. Then the email started. Apologies at first. Long, rambling messages about misunderstandings and taking things out of context. When those didn't work, the tone shifted. Accusations, blame. You're overreacting. Your father manipulated you. You're poisoning the kids against me. Vanessa stopped reading them after the third day. Instead, she called a lawyer. A good one. The kind Claire would have approved of. Sharp,
no nonsense, and deeply unimpressed by men like Derek. Within a week, separation papers were filed. Derek's firm was quieter about it, but the damage was done. Grayson Financial Group prided itself on reputation, ethics, family values. And when HR received my letter, professionally worded, thoroughly documented, they couldn't ignore it. An internal investigation was launched. I wasn't privy to the details, but Vanessa's lawyer told her that several colleagues had come forward with their own complaints. Stories of Derek's arrogance, his subtle manipulations, the way he treated support staff like they were beneath him. One woman mentioned he'd once joked about putting a price tag on favors. It hadn't seemed funny to anyone but him. 2 weeks after my letter arrived, Derek was placed on administrative leave. A month later, he quietly resigned. No public scandal, no dramatic firing. Just a slow, quiet unraveling of the image he'd spent years building. I didn't gloat, didn't feel triumphant. Honestly, I just felt tired and relieved. One Saturday morning, after Vanessa had taken the kids to the farmer's market, I drove out to Evergreen Memorial. The cemetery was peaceful. Early light filtering through the oak trees, dew still clinging to the grass. I walked the familiar path to Claire's grave and knelt down, pulling a small photo from my wallet. It was recent, taken just last week. Ella and Noah on my back porch, both of them grinning, covered in sidewalk chalk dust. Vanessa had snapped it when I wasn't looking, and when she'd shown it to me later, I'd nearly cried. Because they looked happy. We looked happy. I placed the photo gently against Claire's headstone, right beside the flowers I'd brought. "They're back, baby," I whispered, my voice thick. "Ella and Noah. Vanessa, too. They're home." The wind rustled through the trees, soft and steady. I traced Claire's name one more time. I didn't let him make me small, just like you told me. I stayed there for a while, the morning sun warm on my back, and I let myself feel it, all of it. The grief, the loss, the love, but also the peace. Because for the first time in a long time, my family was whole again. Not perfect, not unbroken, but mine. And that was enough.
It was a Saturday in early November when I took Ella and Noah fishing. The air was crisp, the kind of cool that makes your breath visible but doesn't quite bite. Lake Norman stretched out before us, glassy and still, reflecting the pale morning sky like a mirror. Ella stood at the edge of the dock, her fishing rod gripped in both hands, tongue poking out in concentration. She'd insisted on baiting her own hook this time, said she was too old for me to do it for her anymore. 8 years old, and already so independent. Noah sat beside me in a folding chair, his little legs swinging, his Paw Patrol rod resting against the railing. He wasn't interested in fishing so much as throwing rocks into the water and watching the ripples spread. "Pop, did you see that one?" he asked, eyes wide. "I did, buddy. That was a good throw." He beamed, already searching for another rock. We'd been coming here every other weekend since Vanessa and the kids moved back in with me. It had become our tradition, just the three of us, no agenda, no schedule, just time. Vanessa had offered to come along once, but I'd shaken my head. "This is for us," I'd said gently. "You take your Saturday morning. Sleep in, read a book. You've earned it." She'd hugged me then, tight and long, and whispered, Thank you, Dad. Ella's rod suddenly bent, the line pulling taut. Pop, 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 I got one, she shrieked, her eyes going wide with excitement. Easy now, I said, standing quickly and moving beside her. Keep the tip up, reel it in slow, don't yank. She followed my instructions perfectly, her little hands steady, her face a mask of fierce determination. A minute later, a small bass broke the surface, wriggling and flashing silver in the sunlight. I did it! Ella shouted, jumping up and down as I helped her bring it onto the dock. Pop, Pop, I actually did it! You sure did, sweetheart, I grinned, carefully unhooking the fish and holding it up for her to see. Look at that. You're a natural. Noah scrambled over, eyes wide. Whoa, that's a big one! It wasn't really, maybe 8 inches, but I didn't correct him. Biggest catch of the day, I said seriously. Ella glowed. We released the fish back into the water, watching it dart away into the depths, and then settled back into our spots. For a while, we just sat there in comfortable silence. The sun climbed higher, a heron glided across the lake. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Noah leaned his head against my arm, his voice soft and sleepy. Pop, Pop. Yeah, buddy? I like it here. Me too. Ella looked over at me then, her expression thoughtful. Pop, Pop, can we come here every Saturday? Forever? I smiled. As long as you want, Ella. As long as you want. She nodded, satisfied, and cast her line back into the water. I sat there watching them, these 2 beautiful, wild, perfect kids, and felt something settle deep in my chest. Peace. Real, lasting peace. The envelope felt like a lifetime ago now. The confrontation, the letter, Derek's fall. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was this. Ella's laughter when she caught another fish, Noah's sticky hand in mine as we walked back to the truck later, Vanessa's smile when we came home, the 3 of us smelling like lake water and sunscreen. As we packed up our gear, Ella looked up at me, squinting against the sun. Pop, Pop, why do you always say fishing is free? I crouched down beside her, brushing a curl out of her face. Because some things, I said softly, you should never put a price on. She tilted her head, not quite understanding yet. But someday, she would. We drove home with the windows down, the radio playing softly, Noah dozing in his car seat. And I realized something Claire had tried to tell me years ago, something I'd forgotten for a while but remembered now. Love isn't something you earn. It's something you give, and it's something you protect, no matter the cost. So here's my question for you. Was I right to handle it this way? Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done in my position? If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Because trust me, there's so much more on this channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next life story.